whole concept of, letting somebody go, you bring one to the team, they end up not being a good fit. How do you know when it's the right time to do it? How do you actually pull the trigger?
You don't even want to talk to them. You don't want to interact with them. And then they start poisoning the well with other team members. If you don't have core values, this doesn't work.
There's one thing a lot of people forget is, you're dealing with people. It's not like it's just numbers on a spreadsheet. It's like these people have families. Welcome back to yet another episode of the 8-Figure Agency Show, where a successful entrepreneur and a soon-to-be successful entrepreneur help you build an 8-figure agency by documenting our successes and our failures.
Yeah, man, I'm really excited about today's episode. We're going to be talking about something that's uncomfortable that nobody likes talking about, is when to fire and when to let somebody go, and how to do it from a non-emotional way, how to actually walk through it and figure out if this person is the right player on your team or the wrong player. But before we get into that, Derek, we have thousands and thousands of people who listen to this show, and we only have like 20 or 30 comments. So wherever you're at, if you're listening to this on YouTube or any of the podcast listeners, do me a favor. Go and leave a comment or just leave a review. It really, really helps us. Or subscribe. Just do something. Interact with whatever you're listening on. I don't care what you do. Just do it. It'll really help
something.
us. Yes, do something. Interact with our content in some way. It helps us out so much. And we'll continue to make free content that will help you, your business, or your agency grow. And the thing I'm realizing, Derek, is we have a lot of agencies that listen, but there's a lot of other people who are newer in business that this show is providing them value because we're dealing with common business things that people deal with. So I'm excited about that. And today is going to be a great one. I'm looking forward to go through this.
Yeah, this is going to be a really great episode because I have a lot of personal anecdotes, and I'm sure Gary does as well, on going through this. Everybody, whether you're just a regular business owner or an agency owner, you go through this process. It's, you start, especially early on, it gets really difficult, and I'm sure it gets easier with time. I'm in the phases where it's still really difficult, like extremely difficult. What am I talking about? Firing somebody, right? Like the whole concept of, letting somebody go, you bring one to the team, they end up not being a good fit, and you have to let them go. How do you know when it's the right time to do it? How do you actually pull the trigger? I know it's really difficult to keep emotion out of it, but the second you let an emotion take over, you end up not firing that person. Yeah. That becomes a big problem down the line. I'm literally going through that right now. What do we do?
Yeah, it's really tough. I struggled with this for the longest time. I wouldn't let people go. I would just let them hang around, and it made our work environment not a fun place to be. And what you end up doing, instead of doing the right thing and letting that individual go, you end up avoiding them. And they sense that as well. And then that creates a negative aspect on their part, which rightfully so, that you're avoiding them on purpose. You don't even want to talk to them. You don't want to interact with them. And then they start poisoning the well with other team members. So then you start losing good people where you thought, I'll just isolate this problem. You didn't isolate it at all. All you actually did is make it far worse. So we're going to give you a framework to work through that. I'm going to give you 3 things. I think the last one is probably the most valuable for you to be able to work through. But before we do that, I'm also going to drop an Easter egg in here. If you want to be shouted out at the front of the episode, like the last one, then you can listen through and we'll drop that Easter egg for you. All right, so let's work through these. So let's look at the first one. The first one is around core values. Now, Derek, you've just recently started to implement your core values.
Yes.
So if you don't have core values, this doesn't work. And you don't have a defined culture, you have the culture that is defining you, meaning you have team members that are dictating what your culture is going to be, not really you. Now, if it's 1 or 2 people on the team, that's fine, right? Because you have a ton of influence over that. But as you grow and as you add team players or team members to your roster, you lose more and more control. Each time you add another person, you lose a little bit of control, and you have to get core values and you have to get a why. So once you have those core values and once you have your why, you need to decide. So let's say you have, how many core values do you have, Derek?
5.
Okay. So you need to decide, Derek, how many of those core values are you willing to sacrifice? So what a lot of people do is they'll say, of my 4 core values, if somebody does not check at least 3 of them or 4 of them, then they can't work here. Period. In the story. There's nothing else that needs to be said about it. They're just not core value fits. Now, what makes that really nice is then you can start building your interviewing and your hiring process around that. But right now, you probably don't have that yet. So now you have to go through and you have to really say, okay, well, who exhibits our core values? Have we shared them with the team? Have we talked about them enough to the team that they all understand them, that they could articulate them? Everybody on the team could articulate them and share them with one another or share them out loud. And if the answer is yes, that everybody understands that, you need to create a line that you're not willing to cross. And once somebody shows that they're not exhibiting these core values, and you've talked about them, you've shared them with them, you've encouraged them, you've supported them in that, then they have to go. They're not a core value fit, and they can't be on your team.
Yeah, no, this was a huge help for me. I remember we did a whole segment on this. There was my mic. We did a whole segment on this where we actually broke down exactly how to do this, because at first I didn't have this. I didn't have the core values set out. I didn't have our why set out, or how or what, and I did all of that, and it's been a tremendous help because now I was able to align the team on it, and I can actually see, like, and we're going to get into it in the rest of this episode, but I can see, like, who is actually exemplifying these core values through their actions. I'll have team members come to me and they'll be like, hey man, I'm trying to be core value number 3, but I'm failing. They'll actually tell me, like, I know I'm failing. I apologize. I'd love your assistance on how I can be better.
That's huge,
like, whoa,
bro.
like
that's so big.
It's incredible. Like, please, like, yeah, of course I'll give you feedback. And then they're open to feedback and they're willing to change. Like that type of stuff is super valuable. But the thing is, if you don't have those core values laid out, if you don't have your why set out, you won't be able to do that, right? Actually, I think it was
pop up the video up here.
Yeah, I was just about to say, episode 3, I believe it is, but I might be wrong because we've done so many episodes. They're all mixed up. Kyle's going to drop it right here on my face. It's going to be in the description or somewhere here. Go watch it. We literally break down. Gary actually goes through it with me, how to build out a why, how to build out core values, why they're important, how it affects culture. So definitely check that out after you listen to this episode. But when you have your core values set out and you know, you kind of use it as a rule book. You actually taught me this. You said core values is the bare minimum to work at the company. And now you're explaining that, you know, they have a number, you know, 3 out of the 5, 4 out of the 5. But why? Like, so what? Why?
Because if you don't have a baseline as a culture of what's acceptable behavior and what's not, and I don't mean, a lot of people will be like, well, integrity. Well, if someone lies, you shouldn't be working with them, right? Or honesty, or don't steal. Like, yes, I get it. Like, we don't work with people like that. Yep. So that's an integrity baseline that you have, right? That goes unsaid. Then above that has your core values. That's how you drive your company. You drive everything through that. So let me give you some examples of what we do. So we have a Slack channel that is core value callouts, or we call it a high five channel. And in there, every day, there's probably 15 to 20 messages today that have people saying, high five to this person for this core value. High five for this person for this core value. High five for this person for this core value. This is what they did. Every day that's cranking, because that's how we let people know that we appreciate them. And we do it all through the lens of core values. Every Thursday, we have a team meeting. At the beginning of the team meeting, we have, this is our why now, and this is why we do what we do. And then now, and I go over that personally. And then I go, okay, let's do core value callouts. And then people start calling, hey, today Derrik did this for me. Hey, this person did this for me. Then at the end of that meeting, we have core value recognition. So then we go over who's exhibiting core values, and they get recognized and they win prizes. But that's voted on by the team. So we break the company into teams that not their normal team. So if you're on like the onboarding team, we break you away from that. So we put you in teams with random people that you don't normally work with, and then each team has to nominate somebody from their team, and they can decide how they nominate people. It's up to them. That's up to you how you do that. So there's like a level of teamwork that has to happen there, and then you get put up against other people in the company, and then the company blindly votes on who's living out the core values the best in that week. And then the week people compete against the monthly people, and then the monthly people compete against on the quarterly, and the quarterly on the yearly, and the prizes get bigger and bigger and bigger. Like the final prize is a week off, something like a week off, 5 days off, paid, plus like $1,000 gift card, Visa gift card. They can go travel. Like, so, but that's for the year, but you have to get into these tiers. And so anyways, that's all picked by the team, and the core value recognition is picked by the team. And the high five channel is done by the team. So it's the culture is reinforcing itself. Now, where it gets ugly is that's all great. So that's all positive stuff, right? But what about the people who aren't living the core values, who aren't getting any of that recognition, who aren't no one's ever appreciative of because they're dragging everybody else down.
Yeah.
What you're doing is you're building this awesome culture, and now you're allowing this cancer to be in there that's pulling against your culture, and it's impossible to have both. You have to weed out the ones that don't fit to the core values, meaning they don't fit in the culture. That's why you have to do that.
So it sounds like to me the baseline first filtration system of whether somebody should even be on your team or not in the first place is, are they a culture fit? That's biggest part, number one. If they're dragging us to the team
on our
down,
hiring, we actually went through this on like how to hire was in a previous episode as well. And what we talked about was number one is, are they a culture fit? Number two, then we have the manager look at them, or we have a technical person look at them. So we'll bring somebody in that goes, let's say it's Facebook ads, right? Well, we're not going to have the director of business development look at the Facebook person because they don't know how to technically run that position. We're going to have one of the ad people meet with them and talk through, is this somebody is technically qualified? And then if they're technically qualified, then we're going to send them to the manager and say, okay, or the director or whoever's trying to hire this person for their department as high up as possible, and say, okay, do you want to hire this person? They've been checked for culture. They've been checked for technical aspect. Now, are you willing to have this person ingrained with your team?
that all makes sense, right? As a first layer of defense, right? We'll call it defense or maybe offense. I don't know when it comes to firing. But what if they're a decent culture fit? They check 3 out of the 5, but they're not performing well, or vice versa. They're performing really well, but they're not a culture fit. What do you do?
Okay, so then that leads into the second point, is that you want to start segmenting your team, and you should do this regardless if you need to fire people or not. This is something we're working through, and we're not laying anybody off or anything like this, is that we're going through and we're segmenting every department with A players, B players, and C players. So really going through defining what an A player looks like, what a B player looks like, and what a C player looks like. So a lot of times, Derek, will say, well, this person's underperforming, but we have no supporting data to it. We're just like, yeah, it just doesn't feel as good as when I work with so-and-so. But that's not really fair to that individual, because there's no way to correct that. I see this in dental all the time where people will say, well, Susan stinks on the phone. And it's like, okay, well, what's her phone conversion? I don't know. I just hear her. She's not good. Well, you can't hold her accountable to you stink. You have to say, well, her conversion rate's 60% and everybody else is at 80. Here's what we need to do to help this person get to 80. So a lot of this ownership goes back on the leader to say, okay, well, let's define, first of all, let's take this person out of it. They're a culture fit. What is an A player? And you define that. And you go through and you start saying, okay, an A player does this, and an A player does this, and an A player does this. Great. Now what does a B player look like? And you'll be happy with an A and a B player, right? Like, it's not like, well, I wouldn't be happy with an A, or I'd be happy with an A, but not a B. No. B players are really good. You need lots and lots and lots of B players. And then you've got a C player. A C player is probably somebody that you really want to make sure to work on improving. And so what you do is, once you have these segments and once you have the KPIs for each of these departments and each of these positions, I should say, now you can start actually identifying, okay, well, Roger is a C player. How do we make a C player a B player? And how do we make a B player an A player? Now, sometimes you can just explain to people by showing them, and they go, oh, if they're self-aware, which is one of our core values, is you have to be self-aware. So if we show somebody, hey, here's A, B, and C, we expect them to be able to identify, oh, I'm a C player. I'm going to work to get to be a B player. But now some people aren't, right, self-aware. So then what you need to do is you need to put them on like a PIP plan, a performance improvement plan. And so go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to add into it. I mean, it sounds great, right? In theory, this sounds fantastic. But how much time realistically should you be spending working on making your C players work to be B or A players versus letting them go and finding the top talent that will already be A and B players when they come onto the team right away?
Great question. So if they're a core value fit, you work at it. If they have a desire to be there. And here's why. The cost of turnover is like, they say a year's worth of salary. Some people say it's a year and a half worth of salary. So if you say, okay, I'm paying this person, I'm just going to use round numbers, $5,000 a month, or let's say $4,000 a month, that's $48,000 a year. The cost of turnover is going to be about $48,000. for you to get the one, and I'll explain it this way. So you have an underperformer. If you've already invested a ton of money into that person, they already have a ton of corporate knowledge that a lot of times that we take for granted. You're going to lose that money that you've already invested. You're just going to say, okay, I'm going to let this person go. Then I'm going to hire a new person. That takes time, right? You're going to go invest in ads. You're going to invest in interviewing. You're going to invest in the hiring process. You're going to invest in maybe paying them more because it's, they're going to want certain other things because they're an A player, right? So you have all that into it. Then when that person comes on, even if they are an A player, they're not going to learn your culture and how you do things and perform at the level that you want them right away. That's going to take time as well. So all of that is a massive cost. That's one of the biggest costs to a company is employee turnover is one of the and most people don't even realize it. We just think, oh no, I'm just swapping out parts in my car. Well, if it was that simple, then everybody would swap out parts in their car. But it isn't that simple, right? There's a cost to figuring out what the problem is in the car, finding the right part, buying the right part, having the knowledge to put the right part in, and having the tools to do that. Major cost.
Yeah, then you have to retrain them again and go through that entire process, and a lot of people forget.
And they don't always work, Derrik. They don't always stick the first time.
Yeah.
So sometimes you lose that person again because they're like, never mind, I'm an A player, and I thought this was going to be a different thing. You kind of sold the stars and the moon to me, and it's not really what I thought it would be. So I'm going to go to a different company now.
Yeah, no, and see, right now I'm at a position where, actually even taking that initial leap, right? We're actually doing that, right? Letting somebody go. I haven't been able to take that step yet, which is really bad. I think I'm at that precipice where I'm like, okay, I have to eventually gotta get over this, right? Because one thing a lot of people forget is, you're dealing with people. It's not like it's just numbers on a spreadsheet. It's like these people have families,
100%.
Right?
So let me give you two frameworks on that. So before we move to point number 2, let me give you 2 frameworks. So number 1 is, have you given them the resources, the systems, and the guidance that they deserve as a person to succeed? So do they have the proper tools? Do they have the proper training? Do they have the proper systems? If you've given them all that, then you're obligated to let them go. Number 1, for them, because this isn't the right position for them, because you've given them all the tools and the resources and the guidance, you've invested into them. You're actually holding them back because the right position for them is not at your company, and you're holding them back from going to the company that they should be at. And you owe it to your team. Your team's performing as all A players, and this is a C player, and you've done everything to invest into them, and they're not willing to improve, and you've taken them through a PIP plan, right? You've said, hey, this is where you're not performing. You're a C player. We really want you to be a B player. Here's the steps you need to take. And if you've already done that, then it's time. You got to move on. You owe it to them, and you owe it to the rest of your team.
Yeah, what I've been noticing is that people actually, even sometimes before I do, recognize which people are underperforming. And they'll actually come to me, and they don't even have to name names. They'll just ask me about specific things, and I kind of have to do this sometimes a little bit because, the last thing I want is for this person to talk about this person, because when that happens, I don't like that stuff. But that's, they actually would come to me with stuff like that, and it's still really difficult to let them go. But I feel like in my situation there is people where I've given them so much attention, I've invested tens of thousands of dollars, literally really a lot of money, and then given them all the resources. But at the same time, it's like person over here and person over here. This person goes and gets it done. This person, I need to hold their hand throughout the entire process. And does it make sense? Honestly, no. I think we've been putting people on a PIP already, giving them a timeline and measurable, hey, here's what needs to happen, and then if it doesn't happen, we will let them go. We actually just did this today, so really helpful on that side of things.
Yeah. So we go through the core values. Are they a core value fit? If not, then you need to part ways with them because that's just going to make it impossible to accomplish anything in your business. Second, you go through and you develop A, B, and C players. So what does an A player look like? How fast are they editing the videos, or how well are they performing at that particular position, or how many sales are they making, or how many emails are they sending, whatever it may be. And you create 3 tiers, and then you hold that person accountable to improving from tier 1 to tier 2 to tier 3, right? And you hold them accountable. If they say, they're not performing, then that's your opportunity to let go. Now, the other thing you can do is something called 9-boxing. And 9-boxing is, they're going to pop it up here on the screen, and it measures performance versus potential. So sometimes you have really high performers, but their potential is not that high. Maybe they're not motivated and they're just super skilled at this one thing, and that's great. And sometimes you have huge potential, but their performance isn't great. And this is usually, you have like prodigy type people. So this might be somebody who's the most amazing coder in the world, but their social skills are non-existent. So they can't work with people. Literally, they have to be isolated. And so that means you're looking at them and going, man, we could do the most amazing things with you, but your performance is really low because we have to isolate you. So then what you want is up at the top right side of that graph is you have your future leaders. Somebody who has really high potential and really high performance. That's where you want. Those are your future leaders of your company as you grow. And then next to that, the next three are surrounding that, those are your growth employees. These are people that you're identifying and going, okay, these are going to be really good, strong, foundational team members, and that we're going to work up to future leaders. And then you have your next box down below where they're either high performance or high potential. This is where you have to, as a leader, invest into somebody to make that either high potential come out of them or make that high performance come out. And then you have the people where they're just not, they're underperformers is the bottom left. And that's the bottom side of the diagram.
So when it comes to firing somebody overall, right, putting this all together, kind of picturing it maybe like a pyramid, right? So like at the top you have, but like an upside down pyramid. At the top you have core values, right? And then the core values, actually, Kyle, we should make this a graphic and copyright this and put this in the description, but we'll talk about that later. Upside down pyramid. Top, you've got the core values, right? The filtration of firing. That's what we're going to name it too. This is copyrighted by the time you're watching this. But filtration of firing. You have top of the pyramid, core values. If they're not a core value fit, probably need to let them go, right? But if they're fitting 3 or 4 or even all of them, if you have 5 core values out of the 5, they check box number 1. Moving to the middle of the period, identify your A, B, and C players, right? So really take that time, and this is what I'm going to do. I have to do this, right? So take that time, identify what does it take to be an A player on your team in this department? What does it take to be an A player in team in this department? What does it take, so on and so forth? And what does it take to be an A player in general, regardless of department? And B player and C player. Once you have that written out, you take that data, right, and you move to the last part of the pyramid, which is
real quick too, Derek, as you're working through that, those A, B, and C players, I know that's a lot of work, but it will help you with hiring. It'll help you with team growth and retention as well. Because now you can clearly articulate to somebody, here's what you need to do to get to the next level.
And save you money, right? Because it'll save you money on retention and all that stuff. You just said it, 12 months of salary in terms of when it comes to turnover on employees in the team side. But no, that absolutely makes total sense because it connects to exactly what I was saying. The very last part of the pyramid is taking the A, B, and C players that you define and looking at it in the 9 box. It's a really useful tool. You shared it with me on the recent mastermind. I believe it was last Wednesday, and it makes perfect sense. I mean, you see it on the screen right here. You can use the A, B, and C players, the way you identify it, and put them in these boxes. And Gary, I mean, you explained it perfectly. You'll know, like, okay, do I invest into this person? Are they not a good fit? Are they going to be a future leader? Do they have high potential but, are not motivated, and so on and so forth? It's a really useful tool. It's very, simple and self-explanatory, but it's extremely useful. But then I guess this is all great, right? It's all great. But how do you fire somebody? How do you actually pull the trigger in a respectful way where everybody walks away in an amicable fashion? Because I'm not going to lie, or fashion rather. I'm not going to lie. One of my worries is these people know so much about my company, my team, my clients. I honestly sometimes worry that if I let them go, what if they do something rash or stuff like that?
No, they could. I've had people do that. Like definitely, you could tick them off, and they could do that, and that's totally a possibility. I don't think there's much you can do to avoid that. I mean, governments deal with this. Everybody deals with this problem. Like, we gave you high security clearance, and now we have to let you go because you broke the rules. But you still know all that stuff, right? So there's I mean, it's a problem that everybody deals with. I really just try to be respectful to people and give everybody the benefit of the doubt and try to treat everybody the way I would want to be treated. And sometimes that usually works really well, and sometimes it doesn't. I've had people, go check out my Glassdoor. I have an 88% rating as a CEO with I think we have 30 reviews or something like that. But there's some scathing reviews of me on there. I literally had to respond. not the HR department. Like I got on there and I said, hey, this is Gary, and I just want to let you know that I really appreciate your feedback, but some of this is one-sided. Let me explain the other side of this. And like that's one of the hardest things about being a leader. Not everybody's going to like you. If you put yourself out there, if you start a business, not everybody's going to say yes. And then not all of your team's going to like you. That's just the way that it goes. And the bigger you get, the more likely it is that someone's going to hate you. And you think about some of these big businesses. Think about Amazon. Everybody's riding Jeff Bezos all the time.
Yeah.
All the time. Yeah. Do you think he had a vision in his mind when he started his business and he's like, man, I'm going to figure out this operational logistic beast and it's just going to be super successful? Yeah, he pictured that. But did you picture that, yeah, most of America is going to hate you?
I love my Prime. Listen, I'll take my package next day delivery any day. But
me too. I would say this, that you have to take the good with the bad. I would also say make sure you know what the laws are when you're firing people. Sometimes you can get in big trouble for saying the wrong thing. So not sometimes, like a lot of the time.
Tying it all together in terms of bandwidth. So I will tell you guys from a personal point of view, right? In terms of the situations I'm going through, which is literally this, right? Like exactly this. I'm finding that right now I'm actually at a point where my bandwidth is like the little things and like even stuff like cold outreach and stuff like that, which I know needs to be done. I don't have the mental capacity, the bandwidth, or the time to do it because I'm so involved in managing people. My literal day-to-day has gone from sales emails and always being on sales calls and all that to now I'm like, okay, this person didn't get this information or they feel like they're not being supported or I need to have a conversation that's pretty difficult to have with this person and I have to manage it. Man, it's hard. Like, I'll be honest, it's really difficult. And, not having that bandwidth, I'm honestly getting stuck sometimes. So this is why I'm kind of looking at this and I have to really decide, like, okay, I know this person, I'm really holding their hands. These people kind of have it covered. Do I keep this person on? Do I have my own personal mental capacity? What am I sacrificing on this side? Am I losing sales? Am I losing new clients? Am I not taking the time to continue the business development side of things?
I've been there. It becomes too much. It becomes impossible to manage. So this is why you have to go to, hey, what is my biggest anxiety point right now? And then go hire that out.
And what if you can't afford it?
Then you have to grow. So you have to go focus on what's going to grow. So it's sales.
Yeah.
And that's your next hire.
Yeah.
And then that will prevent you from burning out. So here's where you'll burn out. Because I've gotten stuck right where you're at. We were at probably like $250,000 a month in recurring revenue. So we were probably 10 times the size you are right now, or roughly 9 times. But I was stuck. I couldn't go anymore.
Yeah.
And so I just kept doing the same thing over and over and over again for like 2 years. Now I learned a ton during that time, but I started to burn out because I didn't see the light at the end of the tunnel. So if I could go back and talk to my old self, is Gary, create the light at the end of the tunnel. I'm going to hire this next position because that's going to remove this obligation off my plate. I have to make this much more money to get that person. I'm going to go out and make enough sales and recurring revenue to go get that person. And that's going to take me 2 months, 3 months, whatever. And then right when I get about 80% of the way there, I'm going to go out and start looking for that person. I remember hiring people was one of the things I hated doing the most. I didn't even want to grow because it was like, I don't even want to go hire. I don't even want to go through that process. I don't want to put up the ads. I don't want to, go into all the interviews. Like I hated that, but you have to do that because that's part of the learning process of being an entrepreneur is figuring out how to hire good people and how to weed out the bad people. And that's just part of the process. Like you have to go through that.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. That just lifted a massive weight over my chest. Like, I knew I had to do all that, but when you just laid it out in those, 3 steps, like, who is my biggest anxiety? How much money do I need to make to hire them? And how soon can I make that happen? Okay, go do it. I know that that's simple, but, wow, that really lifted a weight off my chest. And, people don't talk about it. When you're starting an agency or a business, they forget to mention these things. Like, you see these people online, they're flashing the cars, and I'm making $100,000 a month. They forget to mention, no, dude, you got employees to manage, and somebody gets sick, or somebody's not happy, or a client's not happy, or you lose a client, then you got to find a client, then you got to hire. And I'll admit, I also hate the hiring process. I really don't like it. It takes so much time. I despise it. And not only that, but it costs money and time, and man, I hate it so much. When I dread having to do it, especially the last 2 months.
You have to, but that's gonna let you. So here's what I now looking back and looking at that experience and going through the hiring where I would meet with 5 people or 6 people and 7 people, and sometimes I picked the wrong person, and how that set me back a year, Derek. like a year,
Yeah.
right, of that position, and then going, stink, like I have to go through that hole again.
Yeah.
I learned so much about each of the positions and the different parts of the business and things that I didn't even know anything about inside of the business. Like it leveled me up as an entrepreneur. Like I can't even put a price tag on it. That you have to go through that. Like you can't go to the next level until you go through that.
Yeah, no, this really, it's all, if there's one thing I've learned, it's really all about leveling up. It's crazy because I've seen this firsthand, both in myself and a lot of other people I've spoken to in the masterminds as well. And I see like they all reach this, we just did an episode on this, they reach the plateau. And typically the point of the highest resistance is at the point that you're just about to break up and, go up there. In fact, I saw a video many years ago. I don't know if it was his original thing, but it was a guy named, I think his name was David Meltzer on Instagram. And he gave this analogy. He's like, listen, when you're growing as a person, you think of yourself as a plant and you start off under the ground, and just about when you're going to break out of the ground, it's the hardest point. You're going to try to sprout up. A lot of people that's a cycle. You always go to that. The point where you're just about feel like you're going to just go crazy is most of the time when you're about to break out of it and evolve and level up as an entrepreneur. It's a game of leveling up. It's really something that I've learned to be very, very true.
Yes, sir. This is a good episode.
Yeah, I feel like this was a good episode. Listen,
okay,
bottom line.
So Easter egg.
Oh, Easter. I was going to say one quick thing about the firing. When it comes to business, I'm going to keep you guys posted on this. Do I fire? Did I not? Like, what happened? I will let you guys know. I promise to keep you guys updated. But yeah, Easter egg. What do you want to do? We did numbers.
Easter egg. Today is September 6th.
Yeah.
So I want you to go to, did you post on Instagram today?
Like me personally?
Yeah.
No, I haven't posted on a minute.
Okay, I did. I posted 2 posts on there. I want you to go and comment on those posts on Instagram. I have 2 posts, so you can comment on either of them. One of them's actually comment on this one. I finished a meeting up 10 minutes early. I ran downstairs, went to just check on everybody. 2 of my daughters were having a tea party. They were having water and goldfish. And then after I said, "What do you guys?" And they were watching Peppa Pig. And I was like, "What do you guys do after you do that?" So I sat down, had tea with them. I said, "What do you do after this?" They go, "Oh, we always finish with a pillow fight." And I was like, "Okay, cool." So we had a pillow fight. I did that all in like 5 minutes. So I posted. I said, "What do you do in between your meetings if you have an extra couple minutes?" So go comment on that. And if you comment on that, then and let me know. Hey, I heard you on the podcast. We'll shout you out on the next show. I know that's super complicated.
Comment Peppa Pig so we know that you listen. Comment Peppa Pig. That's an amazing story.
Yeah.
Typically between my meetings, I just eat and drink and then I go back into my meetings. But this was a fire episode. Guys, please, if you're listening this far, that means you literally watched the entire thing or listened to the whole thing. Leave a review on Spotify and Apple Podcast. We're getting some good reviews. We want more. We really want to climb in the ranks of these charts and be one of the biggest podcasts in the world. I think we provide a lot of value here. And if we're not, you need to tell us. So drop a comment if you're listening on YouTube. Visit us on Instagram or TikTok or YouTube and tell us you suck. We need that feedback, even if it's negative. Do something.
I love all the people that say, "You guys don't have any clue what you're talking about." And
those are the best.
And I'm always like, "Man, I want to know, what business are you from? I want to know." Yeah, tell me. I'll have you on the show.
Yeah, no, I don't think we're saying things that are too controversial all the time, at least. But guys, thank you so much for watching. If you're on YouTube, hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell. We upload every Wednesday, 10 a.m. Eastern Time, new episodes, long-form clips coming up on there, YouTube Shorts coming up on there. Drop a comment and like the video as well. If you're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, leave us a review and check out our clips on TikTok, Instagram Reels, and YouTube Shorts. I post a lot of content on my personal. Yeah, shout out Kyle, of course. He's probably popping up a bunch of things as well. Kyle's the editor behind all of this. He's incredible, by far.
Next time I'm going to do him. Next time we're going to follow. I was going to send him over to your Instagram, but
send him over to Kyle's. Yes. Yeah, we will do that next episode. Stay tuned. Kyle, it's coming up. Kyle likes to do Easter eggs. People who watch the video, you'll see he puts himself in the video sometimes. I don't know if you know this, Gary. So we'll talk about him, and he'll record a segment of himself sitting there reacting to our thing, pop it up in the episode for 2 seconds, and goes back in. It is hilarious. He sends it to me. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching.
I've seen him drop a little clip like that.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Guys, we're not going to take up any more of your time. We'll see you next Wednesday. Thanks so much for watching and listening.